He's throwing downfield, 20 yards, 25, 30, 30, 40. He's going to go all the way. He was doing this before Chris Berman did.
That's like Georgia football
Matt
personified.
Stovall. Yeah, well, that's Scott Howard now. Yeah,
is,
doing that. But Larry Munson was the first one. And so Matt did that locally.
Okay.
And I sat back and I was like, wow, he's having fun. So I decided I wanted to do that as much as I could.
Welcome, everybody. Today is Sunday, May 24th, and we got a good one for you.
That's the biggest controversy, most recent controversy of anybody that I've dealt with. Yeah, well, don't be an idiot and certainly don't be a crook.
Here with a local media legend at Augusta Podcast Studio.
Augusta's diversity is Augusta's strength, and it's not just black and white diversity. It's rich, poor, it's old, young, it's racial diversity, it's artistic diversity. I just got finished doing a show with the Augusta Players, Mamma Mia, where I was surrounded by an international cast, straight, gay, male, female, conservative. I have a great deal of pride in my hometown. This is the hometown that James Brown was proud of. This is the hometown that I've chosen to raise my daughter and my son in. My wife is a school teacher here. I couldn't be more proud of what she does.
Austin Rhodes.
Hey guys, this is Chris.
Hey guys, this is David.
And we are Drop the Disc podcast. We have an awesome guest today, and I'm very excited to introduce. But before we do that, we have to talk about our sponsor for 2020.
That's absolutely right. And not only do we have to talk about her, but we love Nancy Powell with, what's her company, Chris?
It's called Powell & Associates.
It's her company.
It is her company
And
now.
she's the broker.
Yes.
We love that.
We love that. And she was also both of our realtor.
Right. So she didn't sell us our house, but she's like one step removed for each of us from helping us find a house, which is pretty exciting.
And last weekend, we closed on a home. We
shout out to you, by the way. Big
into
deal.
A home,
big deal.
Into a awesome neighborhood, Montclair. We love it.
Right.
And that was goals for us.
Great
and so,
great schools.
Great schools, but
great neighborhood.
I teach in Richmond County. Audrey teaches in Columbia County. We're good to go. Okay. But I will say that without Nancy, we would not have been able to close on that home. We closed in a neighborhood that is sought out for, and we were able to grab it because of Nancy. So I just want to shout her out. We're very grateful for her sponsoring and believing in this podcast. And without her, we would not be in the studio today, which is awesome.
Absolutely true. And if anybody needs any sort of real estate knowledge, you need to contact Nancy at Downtown Augusta Broker on Instagram. And that, honestly, send her a direct message. She'll talk to you personally. That's how we like to get stuff done. Yeah. And that's how Nancy gets stuff done.
And I actually have a fun fact for the day. So last week, we talked to April Henry King.
It's accurate.
And when we moved into this home, she had messaged me and said, OMG, that was my grandma's home. And that is Augusta's small world right there.
Right.
And she just thought that she was saying there's so many memories in that home. And I'm a little weirded out, but it's all good. I thought that was a really cool fact to full circle back to this week.
So I'm actually going to take that fact and I'm going to use it to transition into this conversation.
Let's do it.
You said a small world that is Augusta. This guest this week knows every single person that lives in that small world.
Yes.
And so we're very excited to get some input from him.
Yes. So today we are speaking with
Austin Rhodes.
For those of you that don't know who he is, Austin, could you tell just a snippet of what you do right now? Don't go into detail, just a one-sentence description.
Right.
Radio talk show host.
Boom.
We have a lot in common, it sounds like.
A little bit.
We're in a different generation of radio.
That's true. And Austin, you've also been, while we're kind of introducing you to people, you have some accolades to your name.
You stick
too,
around long enough,
right?
they'll give you something. Yeah, they run out of people.
Can you tell us your accolades? I really, honestly, Lord. I think people would be interested to hear it.
Well, actually, the ones that I'm proudest of were not Augusta-based. They're Georgia-based.
Okay.
I've been named Georgia Association of Broadcasters Radio Personality of the Year 4 different times.
Wow.
That's for the entire state of Georgia outside of Atlanta. Atlanta's its own award marketplace, but they have Atlanta and then they have everywhere else. And I was named Best Personality 4 years, or Personality of the Year, rather, 4 years by the Georgia Association of Broadcasters. Let's see. There have been numerous Best of Augusta awards. There have been Metro Spirit awards back when they used to give them, and recently Cyber City Award. They've come up with new ones now.
That's the new label.
And I've been winning those too. So knock on wood. Knock on wood. And also, my son gave me a Best Dad Ever coffee mug recently.
So
that was my daughter. I'm sorry, my daughter.
So rated, that one's probably top.
That one, my son and my daughter most definitely carry more weight than
absolutely
the state of Georgia.
The state of Georgia, absolutely, yes.
Okay. I actually have one fact that I happen to know about you. Has nothing to do with where we are, the city of Augusta or anything. I happen to know that you're a Steelers fan.
Big Steeler fan.
The first time I've heard your name, of course, I went to Greenbrier High School. I'm from this area, so obviously I've heard of you for years and years and years. The first time I ever saw you in person was at the sports banquet that gets put on at the Marriott once a year, and you were interviewing, I believe, Hines Ward.
Yes, that was last year. Actually, that was
last year, right?
That was the high school athletic awards that the Augusta Chronicle gives out.
Right.
And I was asked to do two things. Number one, be the voice of God on the. That's literally what they asked me. So, would you be the voice of God? And I said,
"Is that a good paying job, being the voice of God?"
Oh, I'd earned every dime.
Very nice.
Of the $0.0.
Did you wear all white?
I did not because
God.
it's voice of God. It's not the look of God.
True. That's
Okay.
really cool. Yeah. So I wanted to share a little memory that I have of our connection that we have.
Okay,
you
Chris.
may not know this.
All right.
Okay, Austin, but
I dated your mother, right?
right. That
I wouldn't, Chris. I wouldn't call it a date.
Show's over. Cut.
Actually, I look more like David than Chris. But go ahead.
That's true. I was going to say, you asked me earlier where I graduated from. I actually graduated from Georgia Regents University.
Very prestigious group.
Small group. Only about only 6,000 of us actually graduated from there. No one else will ever graduate from there again.
I was incredibly pleased that my wife, when she got her specialist degree, graduated from Augusta University. She was in the first class.
Yeah.
The day that Aziz picked a name that was not a selection that the students brought out or the community brought out, the
day he picked out the stupid name.
The day the Board of Regents.
The day that he announced the name that he had picked himself.
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
Because he's a lion sack of crap.
Yes.
We can say crap.
We can say
crap.
Fine.
We're
safe. So I actually, the day that happened, I was so pissed that I started this Facebook group called "If You Don't Like the Name Georgia Regents University, Like This Page," and in maybe 4 hours, easily 4,000 people liked it. And actually, I don't know if you remember, but you actually contacted me and said you put me in touch with someone that was starting Save the A.
I was. Let me state for the record, I was incredibly disappointed. With Aziz is a given. I was incredibly disappointed with the students at Augusta University for not taking a greater stand against that. And I actually confronted a few people very, very personally, a couple of fraternities, if I remember correctly, and student government over there. And I said, excuse me, when I was in college, back in the olden days, we had an issue. We would get nasty about it.
Right.
I mean, there would be yelling matches and, meetings and all this and the other. Where is this? And they were all afraid of him.
Oh, yeah.
Every damn one of it. It was the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life. The entire free world, when there are kids in school, young people in school, protest. These people at Augusta University or Georgia Regents at that time, just complete duds.
Yeah.
And I told everybody, I said, you give this about a year, let the right people get into place, and we're going to change this. And they all told me I was crazy, and I was right and they were wrong.
You mentioned you went to Augusta, not Augusta University, Augusta College.
Yes.
What's your background? Tell us a little bit about your background.
Graduated from Westside High School in 1983.
Okay.
First of all, though, I did go in 1975 and 76 in the 5th grade to T. Harry Garrett Elementary School.
Ooh.
Where
so that's a connection.
Mr. Chris is now the PE teacher. My PE teacher was Mr. Bernstein.
Did you live in National Hills?
I sure did.
There you go.
Oakdale Road.
Okay.
And loved, matter of fact, one of my very favorite teachers ever. Her name was Debbie Kirshner at the time, and she later became Miss Harmon. She retired just a few years back, I think, from A. Bryan Mary. But loved the time. It was great. It was a neighborhood school. I walked to school every morning and walked home every afternoon, and it was awesome. It was a great experience.
And we still have
Loved it.
kids that walk, bike, everything.
Yep, absolutely. So I went to junior high after middle school, and then to Westside High School. Graduated '83. Went to Augusta College for 2 years.
And did you study communications? Did you know you were going to get into media?
I didn't know I was going to get into media because back in those days there really wasn't a media degree.
I believe, I believe that.
And I didn't know really what I wanted to be. Nobody in 1983 wanted to be a radio talk show host.
Okay.
If someone had told me, you know, you're going to be working in radio news at the radio station that you listened to as a kid, which I did. I listened to GAC when I was a kid. I wouldn't have believed it. And then if they would have gone further to say, and oh, by the way, before you come back to do a talk show on WGAC, you're going to spend 3.5 years working in TV news, I would have thought they were crazy. But that's the way it all worked out. So I went from Augusta College to interning while I was at Augusta College with my dear friend Matt Stovall, God rest his soul, helping him do high school football games on the radio. Back in those days, it was Evans High School.
So you got your start in sports?
Yes.
Okay.
And I basically just kept stats for him. And slowly but surely, he worked me into the broadcast. And then I started DJing part-time on the weekends at the station, which was WMTZ in Martinez. That's now Bob FM, by the way.
Okay.
So we did football games for a number of years. And then in 1987, a businessman by the name of Bob Beckham had the opportunity to buy WGAC. And he did. Matt and I were still at WMTZ. And he was bringing Matt over to do a talk show in the afternoon and also be the program director at WGAC. And they hired me to be a newscaster. And I'd had some experience doing news, but not much. It was mainly my experience in sports that got me hired as a news reporter. And the man whose job it was to train me, he was a news director, his name was Greg Patton. He was very skeptical. And for a long time, I'm not going to say he didn't think I was up to the job, but he just thought I was completely green and it was going to take a long time. But within about a month or two, he saw that I was very serious about learning the job, and he started giving me more and more serious work to do. And thank God in heaven, knock on wood, he and I got along real well. And in about a year's time, I was winning awards doing news, radio news at WGAC.
Year's time.
Yeah.
Wow. When was that? What can you give us
that was?
a little...
I started in '87 at GAC. Did radio news for GAC exclusively until the middle of '89.
So you've probably seen some pretty dramatic changes as far as the media scene in the city of Augusta.
Yeah, when I started in radio, the law, the FCC regulations were that you could own one FM and one AM signal in a market, and that was it.
That's insane.
Yes.
Wow.
So
that can't be the rules now.
Oh, no. No, we own, Beasley Media owns 7 radio stations in my building. I mean, that's, but all of that was much different back in the actually, that's the way it had always been up until, what was it? The mid 90s is when the laws started changing on that.
Wow.
Yeah, there was a time when Augusta, Georgia had 5 living, breathing radio news departments, 5 different radio stations, multiple members of the team. WBBQ had the biggest. WGUS, a country station, had one. WZNY, which was Sunny 105 back in those days, had one. And WGAC had one. Right, so it was 4, I guess. And we all had multiple staff members, and we were putting, lengthy newscasts on the air every single day. Now, one radio station in town has a news department, and it's ours. WGAC.
And that's WGAC, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So with that being said, obviously, you've seen a pretty dramatic change in how media has been in Augusta, and I actually want to talk about your podcast a little bit later too, because we did a little background on you, and we saw the town halls you've been doing.
Oh, that was the first one.
That's the first one.
Yeah.
We wrote a research paper on you.
Right, it's actually very good. You should read it.
It's about 5 pages long.
Oh boy. That was the first of its kind, and I'm not really, I'm a radio talk show host. I'm not a Zoom host, and we're tweaking it. I mean, there's some things about it that are cool, but it's cumbersome to me. I'd much rather do radio. It's far easier to do.
But so outside of media, you've for example, Augusta University and all of its names, you've seen a lot of different things, and you've been a part of really the front lines of a lot of, I almost would say, controversies in Augusta as the government has made certain decisions, the schools have done certain things, etc. What sticks out in your mind? What are some experiences you've had, like from the news perspective, that really stick out for you?
Well, probably the biggest
It can
controversy.
predate us if you would like.
Absolutely.
Most of life predates you.
That's statistically
That's okay.
very
That's
true.
right.
That's true.
Now, the biggest, but this June represents 28 years of the Austin Road Show, but I've been
Congratulations.
active. Thank
That's
you.
insane. Congratulations.
But I've been active in media since '83, the fall of '83. So I've got a few more years on it than that. So get back to the point, the biggest single controversy / issue I think that affected local residents was the consolidation of the Augusta Richmond County governments.
Okay.
And that was a process that started in earnest in the mid '80s. It was approved by the voters in '88. Matter of fact, the major headline the day after the election day of 1988, this was the November election, the headline in the Augusta Chronicle was, "Consolidation passes, Bush elected president."
Wow.
That was the importance of
That's
consolidation.
context. Wow.
Wow.
That's pretty big context.
And so, but unfortunately, the government was never allowed to consolidate because the Justice Department came in and decided that it would be it would have too much of a detrimental effect on diluting the minority vote, which was ridiculous because the Augusta city government at the time, the city proper, was a very small piece of real estate compared to Richmond County. And what had happened over the years.
What was Augusta at that time?
Well, it's hard to. I'm going to see if I can lay it out for you.
Yeah,
It went up,
very hard to describe.
It went up Washington Road right to the Augusta National.
Okay.
And basically stopped there.
So like Calhoun.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
To East Boundary.
Okay.
To the out to the airport.
Okay.
Okay.
And then it kind of cut inward. But it was, I remember very, very well the population being 45,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy moly.
But here's the problem is that back in the day, all of the hoity-toity real estate, all of the nice suburban areas were all Somerville and National Hills. And, that was your tax base. Mm-hmm. Well, what we've seen happen over the course of the last 40 years, all of that tax base moved way out into West Richmond County, or it moved out there rather. Excuse me, let me back up. It was Somerville. That was the nice neighborhood. Those were the suburbs. It started moving outside the city limits. The tax base, the property tax base, which is the backbone of the government, what finances the government, was all moving out to the suburbs outside of the city proper.
And you're describing like Columbia County right now.
Yeah, and all that was left inside the city were virtually no new subdivisions at all, a bunch of old, aging houses and neighborhoods, and a lot of public housing. And so you had a negative property value going on in the city proper, and they couldn't fund the government. The government in that time had its own police department, its own fire department, and it was the mayor of Augusta, again, was the mayor of a 45,000 person.
So you're saying cop cars said City of Augusta Police,
Augusta,
like you would see in Gwinnett County.
Exactly.
Or
well,
something.
no, you see City of Atlanta.
That's true.
Yeah, Augusta Police Department, APD.
Wow.
And APD had a history of very, very poor behavior. I was talking about this today on the show. 50 years ago, May 13th, was the Augusta riots, which was the fault of a corrupt administration in the Augusta Police Department. I remember it very well because the entire town went into lockdown. And my grandfather's furniture store, which he owned for 50 years on Broad Street. You been to the Metro Coffee House?
Absolutely.
It used to be
that is our bar.
It used to be Bentley Brothers Furniture Company, and
that's super cool. Fun fact. We're learning it all.
My grandfather was Judd Bentley, and so
wow.
Several of his people sat in their windows with shotguns in their laps. And sure enough, a couple of people would walk by and look in the window, and they'd see the old guy standing there with a shotgun. They keep walking.
Walk away.
But thank God, not a lot happened on Broad Street. Broad Street was protected because they weren't playing. And this is, say what you want to about police brutality, and there was a lot of it going on. But the cops basically told people, if you riot and you don't disperse, we're going to shoot you. And they did.
Wow.
They killed 6 people, all of them shot in the back.
So they were running away.
Yeah.
What's insane is that you never hear about this.
No.
Well, you need to listen to the Austin Roadshow. One other thing that happened, and again, kind of moving to the need to do away with this corrupt government, they were horrible, racist and misogynistic people that were in charge of that department. And they lost a number of lawsuits, discrimination lawsuits. And as a result, they had to promote a whole bunch of black people overnight. Now, ordinarily that'd be a good thing because the people who were being discriminated against get the promotion, and that's great. But the good people who had been discriminated against, they didn't stick around to wait for the lawsuit. They left and all went to other law enforcement agencies where they became stars because they were great. Literally all that was left were very piss poor employees who just happened to be black.
Nobody wanted to work for them.
Exactly.
Right.
But because they happened to be sitting there when the lottery number came in, when the judge said, promote these people. Man, they promoted a bunch of people that had no business being in leadership. And that haunted that department for many, many years after that. Just suffice to say, and by the way, any veteran cop that has been in this area long at all will tell you the Augusta Police Department had massive problems. There were some good people, no doubt, but it had massive problems. And one of the reasons that consolidation was needed was to close that department down forever.
So we have a couple more minutes before we have to take our first break. I'm going to ask one question real quick.
Sure.
Because I think the answer will be succinct enough.
All right.
We've had a lot of context from you, which, by the way, like, this is some incredible stuff. Like,
Yes.
this is stuff that we've
have
never talked about before.
I actually have a huge question to ask, but I'm going to wait till the next part.
Oh, boy.
So having seen what you've seen about the development of the city and seeing, ups and downs, obviously, throughout time, what would your prognosis be for like the next 12 months of Augusta? What do you see happening
You mean
this
in relation
kind of
to
uncertain
the coronavirus thing?
Sure.
Yes.
Well, I think you have to have relation to that.
We're blessed for several reasons. Number one, we've got a cybersecurity mission in this community, which reminds me a lot of the Savannah Riverside mission.
True.
Right.
In that what we have here is recession proof, and it's depression proof too, for that matter. You can't stop a national defense initiative like that so depends on infrastructure and hardware. Because once you get it someplace, you got to bring people to it. You can't be moving people all over the country.
And you have to finish it once you start it.
Exactly. And the Army has committed to Augusta becoming the cybersecurity center of the entire United States military. So that's huge, and it's something that will hopefully, knock on wood, never go away. So I'm very confident that Augusta is going to do okay. It's not necessarily we're going to be, throwing luxury-filled parties or anything like that, or
Right.
luxurious parties, excuse me. But at the same time, there will always be a solid economic base here in the city of Augusta if we're smart enough to take advantage of it.
All right, so we just finished talking about a lot of different details about the history of Augusta.
And I actually need to ask a follow-up question.
Right.
I have
and
to.
So we've gotten the prognosis for the future. We're going to throw it to Chris. We're going to get one more question, and then we're going to do our community sponsors.
You were saying that so many years back we consolidated. When you say we, the city of Augusta consolidated with a county.
With the Richmond County government, yes.
Okay, so is there anywhere else in Georgia that this happened?
Oh yeah. It happened
so it's not
happened in Columbus.
abnormal.
No.
Okay.
Well, it is
I
abnormal
would say
in that,
statistically it is abnormal, right?
but it's been happening more and more.
Okay.
Columbus did it. Athens, Clark County, I think, did it, or they were
Okay.
thinking about doing it. But it's been done in other places.
It's happened in
and by the
Atlanta,
way, we
right?
went. Well, that would be. No. Atlanta's kind of going the opposite direction. Atlanta is looking for they've got a bunch of suburban areas that are trying to incorporate because they don't want.
I've noticed that, because you've got your Buckhead and your Alpharetta. And
The government of Richmond County prior to consolidation, there was 6 members of the county commission, and 2 of them represented West Augusta in the Hill area. Okay. The other 4 represented either inner city or South Augusta city was.
Yeah. So my follow-up question would be, in your words, do you think the consolidation has worked?
It has and it hasn't. One of the big pains in the fanny from consolidation was, when you consolidate, you're supposed to be saving money and cutting red tape by doing away with redundancy.
Right.
Well, they declared from the very beginning, no one will lose their job when we consolidate, which I thought was the stupidest cotton picking thing in the entire world. City leaders, community leaders bent over backwards. The state legislative delegation put together this deal with the devil, is what I called it, to get consolidation passed, because literally the city of Augusta was going bankrupt. It was going under. It was going to be on the national news. And let me tell you, the one entity that did not want anybody to hear Augusta is going broke, the Augusta National,
the unspoken kind of implied,
and it wasn't just them. It was everybody that operated behind the scenes. All the bankers, all the real estate people. They didn't want that. You know, say what you want to. You guys are from different suburban areas of the city, but we're all from Augusta. When you're in Atlanta, when you're in Miami, when you're in L.A., where are you from? You don't say I'm from Evans. No, you don't.
No.
Except from Augusta,
right?
And that was the.
It's got that recognizable ring.
That was the vibe. What's the Augusta metro area? That was the vibe that everyone wanted to convey back then.
So the political science major that's sitting in my chair right now wants to have this conversation for the rest of the night.
Understood.
I do think that we should move on a little bit.
Okay.
We do need to plug our community sponsors real quick.
I'm gonna plug that sip that I just had. Savannah River Brewery. They are an awesome brewery in the city of Augusta, and they make a lot of good beer. They actually have a small batch right now, a Kolsch beer.
I tried it yesterday.
You tried
Is
it?
that is that the lady owner?
No, that's Riverwatch.
That's Riverwatch.
This one, and Riverwatch is great as well, but the one that we're plugging is Savannah River.
It's the larger tap room.
Yes.
Understood. I'm familiar.
And right now I'm drinking their IPA. I would say that I was not an IPA, Savannah River IPA fan, but they have improved it. I mean, it is so good. You're drinking the Blanqui.
I have Blanqui Kong.
Yep.
Which I think, by the way, would take over the world if they really put this in enough places. Like you give me a Tropicali, I'll give you a Blanqui Kong.
Right. No, absolutely. It rivals it wholeheartedly.
Blanqui.
Kong.
And
Kong.
You know, it's called Blanqui because
I don't know what it means, but
it means white Kong.
Let me explain it. Blanqui is actually Blanc is the hops they use.
Is it white hops?
Because Blanc is white. Sounds to me like it's Whitey Kong.
Yeah, Whitey Kong. There you go.
We need to get their brewers in here and make them answer this question.
That will be fun.
Not to be confused with the great game when I was a kid, Donkey Kong.
There you go.
Which could be
for me too.
Which, by the way,
Honky Kong.
You could get a little confused. You got the monkey on it.
See, I would call that Honky Kong.
We're gonna now focus, Austin. We've basically used you as a living encyclopedia for the last 50 or so minutes.
Honestly, I think everybody has enjoyed it. Because
I think so.
Because now no one has to try to read through the history on Google. Because now I don't have to. I just can re-listen to the episode.
Is canceled.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, you just got the Reader's Digest version. Let me put a exclamation point on the end of what was the city of Augusta.
Okay.
So you had this white mayor, Charles Devaney, who was very, very powerful under the old system, goes out with all kind of red ink in the city, and his entire spiel at the time was that it was all misunderstanding, it was all paperwork errors, it was all accounting errors. And his comptroller at the time was a young lady named Aurelia Epperson, who was leaving because, number one, the government was shutting down, but she was very pregnant. She was about to have a baby. And literally her last day or two on the job, as she was walking out the door, he just destroyed her personal reputation, not necessarily by calling her names, just basically saying, well, clearly we had the wrong person in the position, and there were la.
Pass the blame, pass the buck.
Let me tell you something.
Scapegoat.
She didn't like that, and she called me. And
this is how you tie into this.
And this was again 96.
Okay.
And she said, could I please tell
what
the
were
story?
you doing in 96?
I was doing the Austin Road Show.
You were the Austin Road. So we were talking about the Austin Road Show for real.
On the radio show.
Okay.
And so I said, Aurelia, you come out and sit down. And she came out, sticking out to here because she was about to download this baby any minute. And she had just retired. I mean, she wasn't 30 years old. I mean, she was very young, but she was brilliant. And she basically described how Mayor Devaney had been literally taking the waterworks money to make payroll, and they weren't doing any infrastructure improvements on the waterworks, which you got to do. It's like those are incredibly expensive pieces of machinery.
Right.
And you have to constantly. And he tried to come in the next day, Devaney did, to refute what she had said, but he couldn't do it. And that was literally the last, I believe, the last moment of his political career. He never ran for office again, even though he was supposed to be this great ambassador for Augusta. He was voted best ambassador for Augusta in Augusta Magazine all those years I was winning best radio talk show. He was best ambassador of Augusta.
So that's how you know him. You've seen him at the shows.
And he was, I'd known him because he'd been around. And he came in, we had a mayor that went to federal prison, Ed McIntyre. And he came in the wake of that and helped lead the city out of that controversy. Mm-hmm. And so he had been very important and very good in a lot of ways. I don't want to knock him completely. He's like Richard Nixon. He had a lot of good points about him before his inglorious exit.
By the way, Richard Nixon, pretty decent president.
He was a great president up until he got
98% of the time.
Until peace out.
Exactly. Well, that's exactly what happened with Devaney.
Right.
It's exactly what happened with Charles Devaney. And again, he was thought to be a man whose political story was on the rise, and he was never elected to office again.
Wow.
And it's anyway. So this area has been absolutely mesmerized by several political personalities that have been larger than life, and almost every one of them has gone down ingloriously. Several of them gone off to federal prison. Ed McIntyre, the mayor before Devaney, was hauled off in chains, taking bribes. Charles Walker, who was thought to be the guy that was going to be the first black governor of Georgia. He was the state Senate majority leader from Augusta, taken off to the federal penitentiary in chains. The Republican elected sheriff of Richmond County the same year that McIntyre went to prison, taken off in chains. I mean, it's happened, unfortunately, too many times.
I feel like we need an Augusta history podcast.
That'd be great.
Where we can just do this year by year. There's so much, though. There's so much.
People moving in that are our age don't know about it, but would like to know why is the city not like this.
I've lived here, and I haven't heard most of these. I mean, this is crazy.
I am going to segue into, somehow I'm going to segue into,
somehow.
You said she called into the Austin Rhodes show. So this is how I'm going to segue into it.
I'm impressed already.
You kind of told us can you tell us how does someone just say, I'm going to start my own show, and I'm going to call it my own name, and I'm going to put show at the end. Okay. So we want to segue into what you're doing now.
The inception of the Austin Rhodes show.
We got to go back to 1975 for that. I was 10 years old.
Okay.
The show that was on WGAC, my radio station, in the afternoons in the mid-'70s was called Voice of the People. It was hosted by a guy named Bob Young, not the Bob Young that was mayor.
Okay.
His name was Barry Young, actually, but on the air he was Bob Young. And I would actually, at the age of 10, call into the show, and he called me the WGAC Whiz Kid.
Really?
And it was the same phone number, 863-5800, by the way.
That's hilarious.
And I love talk radio, but as I got older, Bob was so good at what he did. His name was Barry Young. He was so good at what he did that the owner of WBBQ, which was the radio powerhouse in the entire state of Georgia at the time, got him hired out of Augusta to get rid of him because he knew his talent was very singular, very unique. And he got him hired out. I think he went to Miami. And there was never again a talk show of note from that point on. And so I graduated to music and other things. Well, a very interesting thing happened in the mid-'80s as far as talk radio goes. It was the invention of a little program called the Rush Limbaugh Show. And the effect of the Rush Limbaugh Show was that there was this huge presence on the air from noon until 3, and radio stations all over the country had nothing to play after him. And so people started very quickly plugging in talk show hosts. And I was wrapping up my time at Channel 12. I'd done about 3.5 years there. And they had remembered me as somebody that was a good, number one, I had friends on the staff there, and someone was good at what I did. And they said, boy, I think Austin Rhodes might be able to come in and fill that time space. Let's see. And so they brought me in, and I think I had the first contract I had was 3 months. And the first weekend, they signed me for 3 years.
Which, by the way, a 3-month contract, that's something
that's a trial
really
period.
Only hear in sports.
Yeah, it's a trial period.
Yeah.
We're gonna give this a try. We're gonna give it a spin. So it's 3 months, and literally the first week and a half, the guy that was running the radio station came to me and said, we want you for 3 years. I said, okay, great.
Wow.
Signed me for 3 years, and the rest is history.
So curious, how old were you, if you may tell us?
That was 1992. I was 27 years old.
Okay, so about our age. Your age.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit older, but
so when you talk on your show, on the Austin Rhodes show, like, so a thing that we do, like whenever we're trying to put content out, is we try to think like, who is like, how accurately can I describe my average listener? Like, how can we put content out for that person? When you're putting content out, do you have a specific person or group?
No, that's pandering, and I wouldn't do that.
Okay.
And by the way, what I'm about to say sounds incredibly egotistical, but I don't mean it to be.
I'm excited. Okay.
I couldn't care less who's listening.
Okay.
Or what they want to hear. Because if I ever do, then I'm playing a fool's game.
So when you go to speak,
I know what's interesting. I know what's interesting.
You're basically talking to yourself.
I'm talking to myself, or I'm talking to someone that needs to know what I know.
Okay.
Right.
And I'm going to pretend that everybody listening needs to know what I know.
Okay.
You know, and very, very good example today. And this was completely lighthearted. This was not controversial at all. Did you guys see the hearts in the skies over the weekend?
Yeah.
Did you know what that was when you saw it?
No. I saw Tanya
Bonatanabas.
Thank you. I cannot pronounce
That's
it.
okay.
She posted it, and I didn't know where it was.
Well, today, for the first 30 minutes of the show, I talked to the lady that helped plan that for Augusta. Her name's Monica Benjamin. And she's formerly from Augusta, but she works with a group out of Atlanta, and they went literally all over the state and did the hearts in tribute to the healthcare community in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic. So I spent, again, 25 minutes talking to her about that, because if you saw that, you were dying. What in the world?
Yeah.
Where did that come? And now you know.
It was relevant.
Yeah, it was interesting.
To Augusta.
It was interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and then I spent maybe 15 minutes today, and some people would say that was too much, talking about Ken Osmond. Everybody says, who's Ken Osmond? You wouldn't know. Your parents would know that your parents would know that Ken Osmond played Eddie Haskell on Leave It to Beaver. And it was such an iconic character, almost like, I'm trying to think of somebody. You guys are too young for Saved by the Bell, Screech.
Oh no,
are you talking
Screech.
like Friends,
Yep.
like Ross from Friends?
Yeah. Except for the fact that Eddie Haskell was a king sleaze who was very smarmy. Well, hello, Mrs. Cleaver. You look nice today with your lovely hairdo and your beautiful dress. And thank you so much for that wonderful pound cake. Thank you, Mrs. Cleaver. Bye. Hey, Wally, did you see that hot chick over there? That was the split personality. It was Eddie Haskell, and he was literally
like a Seinfeld character.
He was literally the very first character in all of popular television, pop culture, who became this slimy, smarmy, kind of Weasley guy getting in good with the grown-ups and then turn around and be a real, slime ball not slime ball, a cool character / backstabber with the kids his own age. So anyway, he died today. And it was 76 years old. Yeah. But he was a big deal. And so we spent a few minutes talking about him. But Eddie, that guy's an Eddie Haskell. I mean, that's a huge thing. Everybody knew who that was. It would be like saying, "Oh, that guy's a Ross." You know what you're talking about.
Okay. I don't know how to ask this. You are in the spotlight in the news a lot. Aside from just the fact that you are a person that creates the news and speaks the news to people, like there have been, and I'm not going to be specific, but there have been like lawsuits and stuff that you've been a part of, and
I've won every lawsuit.
Which I did some
I've been a part of,
and
let me tell you something.
A lot.
Well, not only I win all of them. I either win all of them or the people that threaten them against me walk away.
Okay.
So I've never lost.
Okay.
I wouldn't be sitting here if I'd ever lost one.
Why is it that you think that that's the case, though? I'm just curious. Like,
I never.
Why are you in the spotlight so much?
I never make a bet, a big one, an important one, unless I know the answer ahead of time.
Okay.
It's almost like a magic trick that's a trick.
So you don't like gamble on sports or anything?
No.
Okay.
But I bet two people. This is a great example. Two people have called the show over the years with things that they said that I knew were wrong. And they argued with me, and I said, you're wrong, and I know you're wrong. One was, for instance, a gentleman called in and he said, the Democrats are always running the NRA into the ground, National Rifle Association. Mm-hmm. I said, well, that's true, but they kind of play both sides against the middle. Remember, the old president of the NRA just a few years ago was a Democrat from Illinois. No, he wasn't. I said, yes, he was. No, he wasn't. There's never been a Democrat head of the NRA. I said, yes, sir, there was. No, there wasn't. I said, sir, I'll bet you $5,000 in cash. And the guy took me up on it. I was right.
This was a call-in.
Yes.
It's a lucky call-in.
I was right.
Yeah.
He was wrong, and he paid off $5,000, which went to Storyland Theater, my favorite charity in town.
And that is how Austin Rhodes makes his money.
Hold on a minute. No, because I wouldn't do it for myself. And
that's
and
how
by the
he
way,
funds the local
I tell you
charities.
what's kind of funny is that if I ever if I ever tried to do it for myself, I would probably lose, just karma. Then there was another time,
go.
about a year after that, a guy called in and he was talking about, there was a stimulus package, I believe, that President Bush had initiated in response to what was going on post 9/11 or around that time frame. Anyway, he said, okay, this money that we're getting is going to come right off your taxes. You're going to get less of a tax return. I said, no, this is free and clear money. He said, no, it's not. I said, yes, it is. No, it's not. Yes, it is. No, it's not. I said, sir, I'll bet you $5,000 that I'm right on this. Okay. And I won the bet, and the guy paid off. What was interesting about this is that this guy didn't want anybody to know who it was that had lost. So he brought a bag with $5,000 in cash.
That's hilarious.
To my secretary.
Oh my God.
But back to the lawsuits.
Yeah.
I had a guy, a young man who popped up. And by the way, people say, well, yeah, no wonder you're the best because there aren't any others. Well, I've put everybody else out of business. There have been many that have tried to do what I do through the years, and they haven't succeeded. Not all of them are bad. It's just generally speaking, a market this size has one dominant news talk station, and we have prevailed. But there are a couple of really bad ones, and one of them was a guy named Ryan B., who literally went, this guy was a consummate, still is, a consummate con artist, and he literally went from being an inmate at the Edgefield Federal Penitentiary to being a talk show host at a black-oriented radio station in Aiken County. And this guy had no clue about the law. And because he heard me expressing some very colorful and strong opinions in a certain way, he thought he could say anything. Well, you can't. And he said some things about me that were libelous and made the mistake of planning with a couple of other people to try and run me off the air. And he was emailing back and forth on it. Well, we got a copy of the emails and the taped accusations that he made against me, and we sued him. And I won a $1.2 million judgment. I've never gotten it out of him, but still out of the radio station owner. And the sheriff of Richmond County, the former sheriff, a guy named Ronnie Strength, he slandered him as well. And he got like a $5 million settlement against him, which again they never got. But bottom line, you take a shot at me, I'm going to come back at you.
You got to be ready.
Second lawsuit / legal challenge. A few years ago when another con artist, a guy by the name of Joe Mullins, who is incredibly
I just want to
wealthy.
say, I did a lot of research on you before this, and I read all about, I'm going to let you go, but I read all about this earlier.
Chris knows my daughter, and she kind of figures into the story a little bit, and it was perhaps the greatest ironic twist and gotcha in the history of Augusta politics and media. I know of none better. It was one of the most bizarre and out from left field gotchas of all time. But real quick, the short version of the story: Joe Mullins is a trust fund baby. He's got incredibly talented and bright siblings that have done incredible things in Augusta.
Is this in any relation to Mullins Crossing?
Yes.
The same family,
just
right?
so
Same
people
family.
know.
Yeah, that's the family.
There we go. Yeah.
So Joe's father years ago died in a plane crash and left his sons and his wife and his children and his wife a whole lot of property, which is where Mullins Crossing now sits.
Gotcha.
Used to be a golf driving range.
And also they owned Mullins Laboratory, which was a blood test laboratory here in the Augusta area that was very, very successful. Well, most of the kids did pretty well in life. His brother Frank is a real estate developer in town, and he's really the brains behind Mullins Crossing. Frank Mullins is.
Okay.
His other brother, Dr. Mullins, the Burn Center director, is another one of his brothers. Well, Joe got dropped on his head or something. I don't know what the hell happened.
That's 2 out of 3. Is that how that went?
Yeah. So Joe he just behaves horribly, and he has his entire life. And his ex-wife came to me about 6 years ago, and they were going through a very contentious divorce, and she tells me this horrible story. This is before he ever ran for public office or became a public personality, per se.
Approximately when was this?
It was a year and a half before he ran for office, and he ran for office in, was it 2015?
Okay.
So it's like 5 years ago, 6. And she told me these horrible stories about how he was treating her and some terrible things that he did that were just horrific. And I listened to it, and I told her, I said, her name's Kim. I said, Kim, I could put this on the air because it sounds awful, but he's a private citizen, and this is really just going to make a big mess. And this is something you need to take care of privately. If he was ever a public figure, I mean, I'd wear him out.
It's a lot easier to talk about a public figure than a private citizen.
You can go after a political person far harder
and
far more aggressively.
Because they're public. It's a public
and besides that, the public has a right to know the character of a person.
Right.
So about a year and a half later, I get a phone call. I was on vacation. And a friend of mine said, guess who just qualified to run for state representative? And I said, who? And he said, Joe Mullins. And I said, Joe Mullins, the one whose wife came to me and their ex-wife came to me? And he said, yeah. I said, oh. So I reached out to several people that knew him. And I said, you tell Joe that I know all of what went on with him in his divorce. And he needs to pull out. He doesn't, because if he doesn't, I'm going to lay it all out. And I ran into him. His children went to the same school that my son went to, and ran into him at an open house. I said, Joe, I know what you did, and if you move forward, I'm gonna blast you. Oh, well, we'll see about that. I said, okay, keep going. I'm telling you, you need to withdraw from this race. And he didn't withdraw, and I blasted him. And I mean, he did some horrific things in his divorce to his ex-wife, the mother of his children, behaved horribly. And I nailed him to the wall. And it went on and on and on and on. And it was a very nasty race. He accused me of taking a stand against him because he claimed his opponent, one of his primary opponents, a lawyer in town named Mac Taylor, paid me to do it. Well, you can accuse a radio talk show host of murder, and they'll keep him on the air. If you accuse him of taking bribes to do something on the air, that's called payola. And they will literally yank you off the air like that. That's an FCC violation. And that puts the company that you work for at risk for millions in fines if it's true.
I'm sure he knew that too.
Well, yeah.
On some level.
He found out.
Right.
Because I immediately documented what he had done and had him send a legal notice saying cease and desist and apologize and correct this or I'm taking you to court. This was 2 or 3 days before the election. And he ignored me. So we hauled his fanny into court and got an injunction against him. It's the first time in Georgia history. Matter of fact, we couldn't find a case anywhere where a member of the media had gotten a restraining order against a politician to cease and desist. And the election was held, we were in the courtroom Friday, and I think again Monday. The election was Tuesday. He came in a very weak third in a 4-man race and almost came in fourth. And he spent way more than anybody else to do it.
It's a distant third, right?
Very distant third. And it's the race that Jody Lott won.
Gotcha.
So state representative. So next part of the story, he's licking his wounds. He runs off to Vegas to have fun. He disappears.
That's always a good move, right?
Well, then I get a phone call from my daughter, 28 years old. Now she's 28. I guess back then she was 24, 23. Saying, Dad, didn't Joe Mullins just lose that election? I said, yeah. And she said, do you know where he went? And I said, I think he went. I said, I don't know. He left town. She goes, I'll tell you where he went. He went to Vegas. And he's trying to get Maddie to come see him. And I said, your old roommate, Maddie? And she said, yeah. Now, Joe is old enough to be her mother, or her father, excuse me. And I didn't believe it. And he's married to another woman at this point. And I said, are you kidding me? And she said, you need to talk to Maddie. I said, okay. Maddie had been a waitress at Twin Peaks.
Okay.
And he had met her there and started flirting with her. And she started getting text messages from him or Facebook messages. And she started documenting them because she knew he was married. And also she listened to the Austin Road Show on occasion and basically knew what he was up to.
Right.
And so she documented all this stuff that he sent her. And the next thing you know, he's literally trying to talk her into flying out to Vegas or meeting up with him and all the stuff he can do for her and all this, that, and the other. And I got Maddie to meet with me and Joe White, who was the editor of the Metro Spirit at the time,
right,
and Stacey Eidson. And we all sat in a room when she called him. And he was in Vegas, or maybe he was even on the plane back from Vegas, discussing how they could meet up, hook up, have fun.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, yeah. This is 2 days after the election that he got his butt kicked on. And I was sitting there thinking, I said, does this idiot know what in the world he is doing? And they documented all of it. And the next week in the Metro Spirit, he's on the cover. Joe Mullins, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Oh my God.
Busted his narrow fanny to the wall.
Oh my God.
I couldn't believe it. It was the oddest, strangest, most bizarre thing. Here's this guy that I'd been, knocking heads with for weeks, months before this election, where he gets killed. And then the one person that he starts trying to play sugar daddy with, and he had a reputation for doing this, by the way, was my daughter's old roommate. That was hilarious.
Not fully thought through.
And he should have looked at the mutual friends on Facebook
and
first.
And it's funny because it's funny that you mentioned that, because the instant that Christine told me what was going on, I said immediately defriend her.
Right.
Because I don't want him looking at pictures and seeing y'all's pictures
smart.
pop up.
True.
Not that he'd be bright enough to know who Christine Rhodes is. But anyway, bottom line, shortly after that, he left town, and he's now holding public office down in Florida. And Google him down there. He's almost as popular down there as he is up here. He did win the office down there. He was able to buy enough support down there because he's got all kind of money coming in from his daddy. But bottom line, thank God in heaven, all these politicians that I've taken on through the years tend to be liberals, and some of them happen to be black. Joe Mullins, thank God in heaven, rich, white, male Republican. Love it.
Go.
Stick him to the wall.
In this
And that
again,
was the most recent one that.
yeah, that's my
debacle.
biggest. Yeah, that's the biggest controversy,
Right.
most recent controversy of anybody that I've dealt with. And again, I'd have absolutely no problem going after anybody that's an idiot. That's my only prerequisite: that you're an idiot or that you're a crook.
Would you say that's your motto of the show?
Yeah.
Just don't be an idiot.
Yeah,
Don't
well,
be an idiot,
don't be an
you
idiot,
say.
and certainly don't be a crook.
Right.
There you go.
Good Lord, I can disagree with people all day long. I had some of the best friends and some of my most ardent listeners. Moses Todd's a great example. Excuse me, a former politician here in Augusta, Richmond County, who I love to death. He's an older man now. He's not moving quite as fast as he used to, but I absolutely love him. And he and I don't agree on anything politically. But it's funny. Somebody asked me the other day, says, "Is there anybody that you ever got word that they were gone or they had died or whatever, that it would make you stop and you would get sentimental talking about a politician?" I said, "Yeah, Moses. He's probably the only one. He's the only one that I'm close to that I consider a friend."
Yeah.
And other than that, politicians come and go.
So I have one more question for you about your show.
Sure.
After that, I'll turn it to Chris.
And I'll probably end it with the
And you
drop
can
the disc
end it.
question. Yeah.
When you do your show, obviously, especially in the city of Augusta, your show is very, I would use the word iconic, almost, that like even if people don't listen to the Austin Road Show, like they know what that means. Like they are very aware of what you are and who you are and what you stand for and even what you talk about. Is there any person that you emulate or that you want to emulate with what you do?
When you do what I do for a living, it's almost impossible for somebody not to either say that you're a Rush Limbaugh wannabe or you're just threatening Rush's footsteps and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And to me, that's like somebody saying to Kansas City Chief quarterback, what's his name?
Patrick Mahomes.
Patrick Mahomes. That's like saying to Patrick Mahomes, "Well, you're just a Joe Montana wannabe."
Yeah.
Well, wait a minute. What did Joe Montana do? He did what he did at a high level for a long period of time, and he did it great, and he won. Why wouldn't you want to do that? That doesn't mean that you want to go live in Joe Montana's house and be married to Joe Montana's wife and have Joe Montana's dog. That means that you want to play the same game that he plays as
Right.
well as he plays it. Now, I chose a long time ago, primarily because of my daughter, to stay in Augusta. Number one, I know the history. I was 5 years old when those riots hit in 1970. I remember what was going on. I can sit and talk about who was mayor in 96, 2006, 2016. I got the names like that. I know them. I can get them on the phone. You put me in any other town, it's going to take me 10 years to get 10% of the knowledge that I've got in this one, which kind of, and I don't mean this in an egotistical way, but if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, nobody's going to replace me. They'll fill the spot, but it won't be the Austin Road Show. Not because I'm that great, but because I've got that much institutional knowledge. That's it. And again, I'm not bragging. I mean, it is what it is. At the same time, I'm not nearly going to be as good as I am here in Seattle or Cincinnati or whatever. So that's my value to the area.
So you're like the ultimate insider.
In Augusta, yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yeah, and again, I kind of wear that as a badge of honor. When people say to me, "Well, yeah, you're the big fish in Augusta, Georgia. What does that mean? I said, well, do you have a doctor in Augusta? Yeah. I said, is he any good? Well, yeah. Okay, he's in Augusta. That doesn't negate the good that he does here. He's chosen to be here. My daughter was young. Her mom and I went through a divorce, and I had the opportunity to chase jobs other places, and I couldn't take her with me. And there was no way in the world that I was even going to consider that. So that was helping me make that decision.
Okay.
Add time to that. And now you've got somebody, again, that can talk about who was mayor 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 20 years ago, and that makes all the difference in the world. I literally can go to sleep tonight and not talk to a single human being tomorrow, go on the air at 3:10 and do 3 hours, because that's how well I know the area. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't have to spend 10 hours on the phone with the city councilman, the sheriff,
Right.
I'm able to plug in and go.
Gotcha.
And actually, just a little quick question.
Sure.
As a radio show host, it's live. So David and I, we can sit here and think about something for a little bit, edit that out, and make us sound
We
smart.
can say the dumbest stuff we want.
How much? And your show is 3 hours, so you most people would think you only work 3 hours. Exactly. I like that laugh because to get the information up to date, how much time are you actually working in the day, including your 3 hour show?
My phone rang at 6:30 this morning. It was a former school board member asking me a question. I'm sitting here now with you guys.
True.
Yeah. What time? Look, there are great benefits to the job that I hold, because I am able to, again, go do what I just described doing, and that's plug in and go.
Right.
But the phone never stops ringing, and that's fine. What's interesting is if I were an encyclopedia salesman, I would still want to know what the dirt was at City Hall, because I'm inquisitive.
Right.
And it's my town, and it's my hometown community. I'm very proud of Augusta, and it's family. Even the ones that I don't like or that don't like me, we're family.
Right.
And so people that say, you just do 3 hours a day, that's the equivalent of telling a football coach he coaches 1 hour a week.
That's true.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm gonna plug one more. We just got this hot off the press. I can't
Hot
speak.
off the press.
Whatever. Little Guide. Austin, are you familiar with the Little Guide?
I am not familiar with the latest edition I had last
Okay,
year.
this
just
is
came
2020.
out. This is last week.
Yeah.
And
This
if
came
you
out.
flip to page 88,
Good
you will
guess.
find the podcast on there.
Look at
Drop
you.
the disc.
Oh, wow.
And we're very happy about this. It's but besides the awesome
Right.
fact that we're in it, this book itself is awesome. I mean, it grows every year. There's local businesses in there. Not only do you see what you can do in the city of Augusta, you can read their stories, and it's incredible. I'm going to show it for the camera real quick. This is the Little Guide. And the best part, David, it's free. And you can
Right.
find it when, most restaurants are open up right now. I'm guessing Stuart Rayburn and Molly Swift have
and you've
already
got your,
populated all of the restaurants
Your
with these books.
salons, you've got your retail places.
Yeah, it's not just restaurants. It's good eats and good drinks, entertainment and culture, shopping, look good and feel good, hotels and accommodations, and services, all Augusta and local, and it's awesome.
And I will say one cool thing that we found out personally as like a business that's in there is that they came and they took a bunch of nice pictures of us and they made us look really good. And it was like very easy on our side to be
Yes.
involved with them.
Absolutely.
And that's something we appreciate.
Yes.
There you go.
Very easy. Easy read.
And we will really quickly plug one last partner, and that's going to be the Clubhouse at the Cyber Center. If anybody's familiar with the Clubhouse, if anybody especially is in the small business domain, Austin, I'm sure you've heard the Clubhouse has been in Augusta for 7+ years.
Yep, I'm familiar with it.
incubating
Yep.
small businesses. And we've talked earlier today even about cyber kind of taking over the city. They're here trying to bring that culture to downtown. And so that's why we love that partnership.
Yeah, they are in the cyber buildings
Right.
and right off Reynolds Street, and it shared space, working area, shared co-working space. It's a great spot. Even if you don't have a printer, hook them up. They got a 3D printer.
They have a
Three of
3D
them.
printer. They do like coding classes, like
Yeah.
any kind of technology thing that you're like, hey, I'm behind on. The Clubhouse can probably help you with that.
Absolutely, and we love being a part of them.
I think that's a perfect segue too.
Yeah. So this show is called Drop the Disc, and it stems from the term disgusta. And so we ask every guest, if what does dropping the diss mean to you, which really means if someone were to come up to you, either out of town, in town, and was just dissing the city of Augusta, what would your response be to them?
Delta's ready when they are. I mean, if you were unhappy here and you don't like the town for whatever reason, then I mean, God knows, hit the door.
Is Delta at the Augusta airport now?
Yeah, they right this minute they are. They have
Nice.
fewer flights.
DC.
Fewer flights. Dallas. Fewer flights than usual, but they'll still get you there.
Right.
But I think, and I don't mean to be cliche when I say this, Augusta's diversity is Augusta's strength, and it's not just black and white diversity. It's rich, poor. It's old, young. It's racial diversity. It's artistic diversity. I just got finished doing a show with the Augusta Players, Mamma Mia, where I was surrounded by an international cast, straight, gay, male, female, conservative, but don't let them ever catch you calling any of them conservative, because they freak out. I'm not gonna out one of my buddies.
Don't out the conservative players.
But he's constantly calling me and texting me. Oh, did you hear what Trump said? I love it. Don't tell anybody I said this. I'll never get another role in this town again. So it's closet conservatives is what I call them. I have a great deal of pride in my hometown. This is the hometown that James Brown was proud of. Mm-hmm. This is the hometown that I've chosen to raise my daughter and my son in. My wife is a school teacher here. I couldn't be more proud of what she does. There are kids, young people, not kids anymore, young people that come up to her all the time. Thank you, Miss Rhodes. It's funny. Excuse me. I might get choked up here saying this. And all the pictures that I have from Mamma Mia, the one that I'm proudest of, were all the kids from Greenbrier that were thrilled that my wife was in the audience that night. Oh, let's get a picture from Miss Rhodes.
Right.
Send it to her. And there was like 10 of them. And I'm like, wow. And I knew a couple of them were her kids, so to speak. But they said, oh, no, we all love her. We all, it's great. And, I never would have known that. And again, everything that she's done, every child that she's taught, it's a ripple in a lake. And those ripples go on forever. I get choked up thinking about it. That's the effect that you can have in a community that you belong to. And that's the effect that you can have every day if you try.
Right.
And anybody can lean back and say, that's disgusting, that's this, that, and the other. Well, get the hell out. Every city of our size in this country has its share of issues. Every city of our ethnic makeup has its conflicts. We're no better and we're no worse than anywhere else. You know what we are? We're not even Augustans. We're Americans. So live with it. Wave the flag, hip, hip, hooray, whoop-de-doo. And I've always said the key part to be a conservative is that a real conservative should not care what you do in your life as long as you're paying for it and what you do doesn't get on me. I don't want your smoke on me. I don't want your toxic waste on me. I don't want your music in my ear necessarily. Other than that, close your door and let your flag fly, baby. I don't care. Just like I don't want you telling me what to do.
Right.
That's what a real conservative is.
So when does your campaign start?
Campaign. Oh, for public office?
Yeah.
I couldn't afford the pay cut.
By the way, I do want to real quick shout you out. I see the Georgia voter sticker on your shirt.
I voted today, absolutely.
Everybody,
Hope you did.
Everybody should be voting.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
What was the experience like in this?
Very quick. I was in Columbia County, of course, and it moved lightning fast, and
they had blue tape everywhere with X's.
They had directions for you, no doubt.
Yeah.
But by the way, just kind of old home week, as I'm going to vote, the elections director in Columbia County, Nancy Gay, is married to Scott Gay, who's one of the chief officials in the Richmond County Sheriff's Department, who, by the way, I grew up with. While I'm in there, Ron Strength's former chief deputy, Sid Hatfield, comes in behind me. He and I have a nice little chat. And I'm saying, again, Richmond County guy in Columbia County.
Right.
All of these folks, lifelong Augustans, all of them helping make this community what it is. Travis Doss, the assistant elections director in Richmond County, he and I grew up together, working with the Augusta Players, ironically. And again, Augusta's the biggest little town in the world.
It is, 100%.
Yeah.
Agree.
So lots of great connections. This is our community, our hometown.
And Austin, thank you so much for coming on.
It was an honor. Thanks for having me.
Austin Rhodes Show.
Yes.
He is a presenter at many community events. An unfortunate Steelers fan. Thank you so much for joining us.
An actor.
Also an actor, part-time.
Sometimes, yes.
Yes.
And,
Thank you.
And shout out to, by the way, your wife and family for staying.
Absolutely. And many
Augusta.
thanks to Bobby for understanding why I was late tonight. And hip, hip, hooray. And my son, Bo, and my daughter, Christine.
All right.
Excellent.
Thank you so
Austin.
much.
Oh, and Atticus the cat and
Atticus.
Shelly and Red the turtles. By the way, I do need to give a shout out to
Yeah.
Ms. Lowry, who David apparently had a crush on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. She got a boyfriend now, finally. We were worried
Honestly,
about her for a
I'm
while.
happy for her. I remember she was always talking about going out and drinking wine with her girls. And so I'm glad that she settled down. By the way, I also saw her at Mamma Mia.
Yeah, we were a little concerned about that, by the way. All that going out and drinking with her girlfriends, yes. I meant the drinking, not the girlfriends part.
All right, Austin, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Don't cut that out.
We won't.
Okay.
We hope you enjoyed that conversation with Austin Rhodes. Please get ready for next week's episode. We will be interviewing Grace Belangia and Eric Parker, both masterminds behind the Clubhouse downtown. We're excited to learn more about them and where they're from, as well as the Clubhouse itself. We have just added them to our partnership, so we are very excited to learn more about them. I hope y'all are excited too. See y'all next week.